lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name is Ryan, and back with me, my good pal Patrick Horvath is here to finish off our creator commentary on Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. The book is done. It's been nominated for an Eisner. Congrats, Patrick.
Thank you very much.
Because the book's been out, like issue 6, I think is about 2 weeks that it's been out,
Yeah.
give or take. So I just decided, like, why not just do both? We'll do a double creator commentary in one episode, finish off the series, and talk about maybe what's in store for the future of this awesome, critically acclaimed title. So let's go through issue 5 first. First of all, this is one of the most disturbing covers that you did of this entire series. We talked about this with issue 4, how this is supposed to be worse than what we got.
Yeah. Well,
right?
I mean, what do you mean?
Like more blood? Remember?
Oh yeah, we initially the initial cover, the art that I turned in, it was way bloodier. And then I had to dial it down a little bit. I mean, it's still like obviously very graphic. So.
Oh, it's still pretty fucked up. Yeah, I mean, you can see the insides of the organs, like half the brain sliced. It's pretty disturbing. Yeah. And not to mention the fact that he's standing there and his missing sign is right next to him. I love the walking sign that it's an animal.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that before.
We had to do that. Yeah. I had fun with all that.
Yeah. Oh man, dude, this one was fucking nuts.
Also, I also love the design on the inside that Nate did.
Oh yeah.
I love that we have the torn newspaper now.
Mm-hmm.
Along with the writing on it and the blood splatter. It's just like, I love how it's just progressively like more and more distressed and gnarly.
Nate's an unsung hero at IDW.
He really is,
man. He does not get the shine that he so well deserves. Like, I mean, the logo he designed too, right?
Yeah. It was based on a thing that I'd done, and then he knocked it out of the park. Yeah. So yeah, we start off with it's for whatever reason, it felt like I needed to write this in the second person for most of it. Mm-hmm. So we have this, it's already like setting the stage for being sort of a rumination, kind of diving into the psychology of Sam, and now she's sort of flipping her lid.
Well, yeah, she left as when we left off with issue 4. The paint cans with the body parts.
Yeah, she's on the run.
She's on the run.
Yeah, and we had her sort of world's turned upside down, like the reflection of the sort of the puddle, and then we have this the splash through, and we have her rainy journey going back to the city, which is sort of the only place she kind of can think of to go and disappear. Mm-hmm. Just because it's kind of what she's relied on for all these years. And then we have her sort of trying to just be one of the people walking through this huge city with millions of people all going about their business and this, all the different lives they all lead.
I love the Wall Street guys.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It
was very much a 1980s New York, basically,
Got the subway, got the diner.
Yeah, I love that I love that the cops are just mostly German shepherds, and I love that they had a German shepherd police dog. And she finds her way to a diner, just kind of trying to just be invisible.
I love the hat. I don't know why, but the hat on her made me laugh.
She had to have a hat.
Yeah, it's like doesn't really cover much. Like her head's so big, but it's like this tiny hat, like compared to like the size of her head.
And at the diner, we have her starting to see like the first of a couple of these, sort of the it's almost like it's the ghosts or the apparitions of like the victims. She's just seeing the mangled bodies of the people that she's killed from the past. Just sort of just sitting there in the diner, and it's her. I mean, she's just kind of coming unraveled, and it feels. I mean, it's the type of thing that was, psychologically kind of started in the middle of 4 with their dream sequence.
Where she gets like ripped apart by
ripped apart by bears, and so this is an extension of this, right? It's getting worse, and she's just trying to keep her cool as all this stuff is kind of she's just seeing it. And it's not even like it's spooking her so much as it's like it's almost irritating in a way.
Yeah, like she can't escape it. Like
Yeah,
it's
exactly. And she doesn't want to. She's just kind of, she can't. She's sort of restless because of it. You know what I mean? And has to get out of there. And then quickly realizes that like even in the city, she's not going to be able to stay invisible. There's already cops that are sort of looking for her because news of this thing has already spread. And even in the in the alleyway, she's met with the Daniel sort of gurgling away.
is that kind of what the cover was supposed to be? Like all this kind of blood dripping down?
Yeah.
A little bit
Hmm.
more of that, and like sort of like here, right here too.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, that probably would have been a little bit much for the cover. I
I
would have been
guess.
fine with it, but
I mean,
I can
it's already so graphic. I was like,
yeah,
all right,
you got to
I
kick it
didn't
up and
mind
I
it.
get it wanting to kick it up a notch. The look on her face in this top right panel, just a look of unamusement,
Yeah,
And then I love how you don't even have to see her face, but like the little like the lines
yeah.
above her head, the shock of seeing the cop there holding her photo. She just turns around and goes back down into the alley.
And then she's back in the car, and she doesn't even know where she's going now. She just needs to leave, and quickly just comes into a bunch of brake lights. Everybody's just stacked up because of a roadblock up ahead. And I love the. I mean, I had to have like the POV looking through the binocular,
Hmm.
which of course she has because she's always very prepared.
Of course.
Um, and then to just have Daniel in the back seat again.
He almost almost looking angry a little bit,
Yeah, yeah.
as he's staring
Totally,
her down.
very much like Pet Cemetery vibes
Yeah.
of the sort of the the dead that can't be at rest. Um, and then she just has to split. She has to go off into the off road in her truck. And it's just like a wet and wild ride. And obviously, like can't get very far before she has to just get out and start going by foot.
Yeah, you know what else I noticed too is like Woodbrook is very bright. This
Mm-hmm.
entire opening is just very gloomy.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, all
yeah.
the
Definitely
colors very
needed to be.
muted.
Yeah, there's not a big color shift until like kind of out getting out of the cave.
Hmm.
The Yeah, I love the idea of just having to go in. It's sort of just kind of stripping her down to what she's used to what she's not comfortable with, to not having the safety of like a vehicle or any transportation, and she's just sort of in the rain and the mud walking cold. And then and also like it's ungraceful, like she falls, we have her tumbling into the mud, she's sort of all dirty now and just kind of uh she's down and out. She makes her way to this cave, which is obviously like caves and bears and hibernation and so on. It's all sort of a thing. It felt natural. I also wanted it to be this sort of interior, this like going deep within.
Yeah, I mean,
And
like she
then
said, she's gonna have a conversation with
yeah,
herself that's
exactly.
been long overdue.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Very,
almost like a
yeah.
mirror right there.
And it's sort of this, yeah, exactly. This is very like I wanted it to have this like dark membrane that was sort of glossy and would make like a reflection, sort of the reflective, self-reflection, very much tongue in cheek.
Hmm.
And then to sort of push through it and enter in, um, felt like a fun way for her to to go about it. And then just kind of, I mean, and then it just gets really surreal, but we have this, you know, pushing through and seeing her like
What the fuck?
seeing her former self. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Seeing like the shell of herself sort of waiting for her. she just tumbles back and her head just immediately comes off and reveals this tangle of snakes that's sort of all just writhing inside of
Well, not just
her.
that too, but like the look of dishevelment. Like usually she's so neat and tidy,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
her
yeah.
shirt's all tucked out, her
Yeah,
sleeve
yeah,
looks
yeah.
all like unbuttoned.
Yeah.
But this is fucking weird. Yeah, the
Yeah, I
snakes.
love it. I don't know why. If it's funny because it just felt like extremely natural to have a bunch of snakes on the inside.
Hmm.
That were she was sort of this weird, terrifying thing. It's sort of just some sort of depiction of the sort of strange and terrifying elements that kind of make her up that she's never really thought of confronting at all or thinking of. And it sort of was taking a page out of the Tibetan Book of the Dead,
Hmm.
uh, because I was I don't I read through it a while back in regards to Timothy Leary had repurposed the Tibetan Book of the Dead as a guide for tripping, and
Okay.
so I ended up reading it, the actual Tibetan Book of the Dead. And there's all these realms that you sort of pass through while you're in the bardo between life and the next, plane of existence. And through these realms that you're going through is like these different hells and so on. And that kind of keeps reiterating that like this you're going to see this, you're going to see that, and it's going to be very upsetting, and you're going to feel compelled to stay here, but don't, like, you have to keep moving. But just understand, like, this is all part of you. Like, this is all part of you. You don't have to be afraid of it, but you kind of have to process it and move on. Which
Mhm.
I can see why you used it as a guide for tripping, but it's also it also just kind of always stuck with me, and it felt like the natural way to go about having this moment with Sam in the cave, and moving past it. And then finally, so she comes out the other side, sort of reassembled, right? And makes her way. And now the rain stopped, and like, she makes her way down to the stream. And again, like seeing her own reflection, but also seeing like the reflection of an actual bear.
With the blood all over its
Yeah.
mouth.
And we have again, and I mean, like, it's supposed
Yeah.
to be a different. I mean, this is supposed to be not the same forest that she's been in before,
Mm-hmm.
but it felt really like of course this has to be the same bear, you know what I mean, that she encountered before.
Right.
um and then to sort of continue uh this sort of um conversation, I guess, that she's having with it, but it's also like she definitely respects the bear, you know what I mean.
I love,
um
I mean, like, hey, I think we met before. My name's
yeah.
Sam. You have a
Very
lovely place
trying to be
here.
very personable. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then realizing she sort of intruded upon this bear's kill,
Hmm.
um and noting like why that would be a problem. And then you obviously have this other bear who's very much wanting to get in on this kill.
It's kind of ironic too, because that's the bear from the issue one, like that bear intruded in on her kill
Yeah,
when she was,
exactly.
you know.
Exactly. So the so yeah, so then we obviously have this new bear confrontation, um and Redface isn't really going to take that. So
Yeah.
sort of they clash, and then Redface makes some pretty brutal work out of this new one.
I love how at first Samantha's like over here watching them fight. She's kind of like got this look of like shock, but
Yeah.
then she slowly gets like the excitement, and
Yeah.
then like, yes, you know.
Yes. Yeah. 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 It very much felt like it needed to tap into something sort of even more like primordial with Sam.
God, dude,
Um,
the organs come at the
yeah.
splort.
Yeah. Gotta have a good old disembowelment.
Yeah,
Which is messy, and it's not
yeah,
usually what she's into at all.
right.
But this sort of, I think this conflict is definitely informing her for sure, and especially sort of working on the kind of what she just went through coming in through the cave. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's kind of an analogy of her and Nigel, right?
oh, for sure, yeah,
Right,
that's
and then
that's
because
for
like
sure.
now she
Um,
sees like, okay, I know it, like kind of like I know what I got to do,
in a way,
basically.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. That's for sure part of it. And then we have the switch between second person and first person,
Hmm.
with the captions. And then yeah, she's back in her car. It's like getting sort of like sunsetty dusky, and then we're back, by the time she makes it back to Woodbrook. um she's under cover of night and has to break back into her own shop just to try and see what the hell, for the first time since Charlie's been killed in there. um and then also notices this little thing. I totally just threw in this little beat about her finding the ring on the chain.
Hmm.
It wasn't, I didn't plan on it until I had a whole different, I didn't, it wasn't totally different. It was a very similar thing. I think initially I had planned for that page on the right to just be her. It was just her. It was just like a large bottom panel of her in that middle tier. of just like with flashlight looking at the counter.
Okay. And
And
then you added these three
I added
later?
those 3 beats because I specifically wanted to have that moment at the end, which plays out in issue 6
Mm-hmm.
of her bringing that chain back, because there needed to be like she could still she knew that there was value in uh playing that emotional beat with Pauline later.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I wanted it to be sort of a real sad, sweet moment that
I
I thought
love too that
would be great later.
she's like, it's Woodbrook isn't ruined, just a little banged up, nothing that can't be fixed with the right tools. So like
Yeah.
at first she leaves because she's like, fuck, I mean, there's nothing to do. It's ruined.
She
My
doesn't even
home.
know how bad it is.
Yeah. So like now she's like, we don't know as a reader, but Samantha has already probably, what I'm assuming, has worked out how she's gonna basically flip it off of her to where she's not gonna be screwed and she can go right
Yeah.
back to business as usual.
Yeah.
And this final page right here, dude, her grabbing the tools.
Yeah, it felt like a fun, necessary thing to have. Um, I wanted to do a just a quick little like, obviously like it's gonna get kind of gnarly. Um, but it also just kind of is also her very much in control again, feeling like she's got a plan. And I wanted the page to look fairly like, I love the idea of having that sort of geometric breakdown of the panels in that middle tier, just to kind of one dynamically make it look like it's, on
Yeah,
point.
no, it's awesome.
And then yeah, to have her sort of in control. And then I knew that issue that, I love how the next issue cover is always on the right, so it felt like a natural, like almost just another panel is how I was like imagining it would play out, and it works pretty well.
Yeah, I love when she's like, it's gonna be messy, so I'll double up on the plastic. That
Yeah.
line too also really got me.
6, the conclusion, bittersweet. Like it's fun because like I just it's, you sort of hit a stride as you're getting into it.
Hmm.
Um, and then when you get to 6, it very much felt like, I was just having a blast making this thing.
Was
Um,
this the hardest one to do for you?
in terms of um, in terms of making it, not necessarily. The the time crunch for doing this one was hard. Um, and I would say it was hard, I think, to figure out how I wanted to structure 6.
Hmm.
And then as soon as I was like sort of brainstorming out kind of how it would work out, it felt like it almost just felt like a real strong AB. Um, and that because another part of me had thought of trying to do it as a parallel,
Okay.
and it felt like it just wouldn't be strong enough at all. It kind of felt like it diluted everything. It was like going to parallel Nigel and then parallel Sam, um, and then have them combine, and it didn't feel like I was gonna it was just wasn't doing what I wanted to do. Another big thing I realized, what again, like look at this inside thing that Nate did with
I
this cover,
know.
man. Like it's like the total, like the last one was like distressed and like ripped off, and it was kind of a palimpsest. This is just a total like collage of like just madness
Oh yeah.
that he's put together. Like I love it. Like it's totally bonkers.
Yeah.
Um, so one thing I realized in doing all of this is that like just by virtue of page count and everything like that, man, when you get to the beginning of this, I kind of like we're at issue 6. I'm realizing like because of the nature of how everything is played out, I didn't have I never had Nigel killing anybody. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like you would never
Yeah.
see it because we kind of couldn't see, you know what I mean? We needed to have like the mystery of who the killer was.
Right.
And then you have to have reveals happen. So you can't like none of the like 4 wouldn't have hit as hard if we knew that he had Charlie. And so that had to be a surprise. But the thing is like now you have all these victims and you never once saw Nigel doing any of it. And so then it kind of struck me when I had him taking photos of Sam at the end of 4. that his camera was just going to be a part of this thing. And so I wanted to have his photos be the basically the way we got into this.
He's
And we
such a
like,
sick fucker, dude.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
he's
absolutely,
like,
yeah.
I don't know why, but I mean, Samantha's obviously a killer too. I'm not saying she's not sick.
Oh
I
yeah,
think,
she's arguably worse.
yeah,
Like,
I think it's just the smiling that he does, like to where I feel like, dude, you're more of a creep
yeah,
than
he's
Samantha.
definitely a creep. Yeah, he's way creepier. And then the other thing that he just can't help himself for doing this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like he's doing it in a way that it's almost like the notoriety is part of it.
yeah,
And he kind of can't help himself in a way, but he also kind of realizes like he can't just keep all these photos. And so anyway, so it just kind of all came together and became the way that we're gonna get this almost like a behind the scenes, right, of like what Nigel was doing, and then to also have him, setting it all on fire.
yeah. I mean, I think it's a fantastic way, and then you just see the pile of all the photos, and I think there's even more than we saw
Yeah.
before, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
But he still has this like keepsake that he has in this little hole he's kind of created to keep his stuff out of the house. But he and we also have a gun, which it felt like um a really sort of amateur thing to have, which again is you know that's it's a testament of just kind of like Nigel and how he's not necessarily like compelled to do the things that like Sam does necessarily so
He's not
much
as
as
smart or
like,
clean with his stuff.
no, he's not. And it's just kind of the recklessness of it
Hmm.
um was another element to it. And I knew I wanted to also incorporate a gun later, so that was all sort of part of it. What did you say?
He's just so content. He's just so
Yeah,
like content with himself
yeah,
in
yeah,
this bottom panel, and then the turn where he's like he can feel somebody watching him.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's definitely Sam watching him.
Hmm.
But we don't know that yet.
Yeah.
So basically this whole first chunk, so I said I wanted to split it up like A B and make it pretty these two strong halves of this issue. So this whole first issue is like Nigel's world, right? This is what Nigel's Woodbrook is essentially would be without Sam. And he's sort of a kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
And we have this sort of troubling encounter that he
Oh,
has.
dude. Yeah. With this like young,
Yeah,
I mean, what cat, right?
with yeah, it's sort of
Yeah.
the tiger girl Sally.
Yeah.
Um, and who you see in issue one, she's one of the kids that says good morning to Samantha as she's going to work in the very first couple pages. And then brought her back a couple times with her dad. You also see them at the funeral for Martin in issue three. And here she
Oh,
is
that's
just
right. Yeah.
blowing parks or blowing bubbles in the park.
Yeah.
And then here comes Nigel. And it's just the
Creepy
creepiest.
Nigel. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. He's so creepy,
just
dude.
trying to make the creepiest dialogue, basically.
Yeah. About, he wants to take her,
Totally up
and
to no good. And it's
yeah,
like not even that he would do it now necessarily so much as like, just kind of enjoy the moment that he could.
right.
And then also to sort of start taking photos of her. It just kind of felt like he's essentially just kind of sizing up, licking his chops of like what he wants to do next.
Well, even this too, like, when the dad calls him Oliver, like
Yeah.
that just right there in that moment, and he's like, Nigel. It's like that's probably why he wants to notoriety because nobody knows who the fuck he is. Nobody really cares about him. He's
Yeah. And it's very
forgettable.
much like it's almost like well, they're gonna know me now type of
Yeah.
mentality. Um, and then yeah, and then we had this start of this whole click bang thing that I wanted to carry throughout this issue too, where he's taking the photos and the click and the bang.
Oh,
And then he has
interesting. I
this
didn't
gun
even
with
pick
him.
up on that. Yeah.
And then again, Nate's newspaper stuff is so rad. I had to have like a close-up of a newspaper for the Woodbrook Wanderer in this issue. Because it just felt so necessary.
Hmm.
And then also wanted to chime in with Chip and to have this, play the other side of this where it's like he's just sort of Chip's totally stand in for the rest of the town, but everybody's just so unaware and unassuming that he would be the killer, you know what I mean, or that he would ever even be capable of that.
There's nothing sweet about this little fucker at all.
Yeah. But then also again, like he's just, he notices Louise coming out of the coffee shop,
He's always
who
watching, dude.
who we saw her in issue 2. And he's got his eye on her, and he has for a bit, so he's following her now. And
When
we
he
sort of
talks to himself, dude, hi, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
just it's so fucking creepy,
Yeah,
dude.
it felt like it needed to be like this very suggestive, like putting on a telephoto lens moment.
Hmm.
Um, and then to have we sort of see again the POV of taking a photo.
Yeah, I dig that. I like when you do these POV things. It's cool, especially because you have all these like little details right here
Yeah,
off to the side.
yeah, it's very much from my Nikon FE2. I needed to have something that felt like a 1980s SLR. And then yeah, and now he's just totally just clocking her going through the supermarket. It needed to be this also this sort of strange kind of there's just like everyone's on edge.
Yeah.
And then we've also played up the this woman, this bird woman that just is very like anxious and can't help running into people, including Sam from issue 2.
Got that Karen
Uh
hairstyle too.
yeah. And so and then just has this kind of, like
Hmm.
like very much like I can't stop. Are you okay? I'm sorry. Um felt necessary. And it was interesting to have, Nigel sort of be the one to help her up in that moment. And then to still have it be like she just doesn't know his name.
I know, because he's all like, "Hey,"
Yeah.
like as he's helping her up, it's Nigel again. Then you got the
And
click
then
bang again.
yeah, and then to have the click and bang again, yeah. Just taking more photos. And again, we're sort of in his developing room. And we're not even sure where this is yet, but I definitely wanted to have a dark room where he was actually the one that was obviously developing all this disturbing stuff. Like you couldn't just be letting anybody develop it.
Hmm.
And so of course it would be this sort of like cheap little black and white developing room he's got with I'm sure he has an a larger somewhere. But he's just developing his own photos. I love there's something about it of like him doing this and cataloging what he wants to do next in town. And then also just like talking to this picture of Sam that he has up and setting up that he's sort of anticipating her being around and that he'd be ready for it.
Yeah.
And then we have this little glimpse at the bottom of the page of him in this building. It's like I love the idea of sort of just hinting that there's more in Woodbrook that's sort of maybe seedier,
Right, because of the
including
weekly
like
rates, because that's kind of weird.
yeah.
Nothing ever happens in those like places where like you can take
Nothing
it for the
good.
night, or you know what I mean, like for the hour or by the hour,
Yeah. Oh
or if
yeah.
it's like a weekly rate. There's something weird going on there for sure.
Well, and it's also like the type of place you would go where you don't want to be, sort of
Hmm.
like, uh where you can sort of go unnoticed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and so that felt pretty necessary. And then we're back over at Lola's house where Lola and Nigel live. And Lola's having her sort of evening watching Masterpiece Theater and eating popcorn and knitting. And lo and behold, she assumes it's going to be Nigel coming home finally because he's been out late a lot lately. And instead it's Sam.
In her full regalia, dude. The
Yeah.
goggles, the fucking apron. She's like not even hiding it. I love
Yeah.
that.
No, she's just kind of come down for business, which is
Yep.
sort of yeah, it's so unfortunately this is bad news for Lola.
And
Um
and Lola knew. That's
yeah,
crazy, dude.
we have this whole conversation of like Lola pretty much knew about Nigel. And then she also reveals that she pretty much knew about Sam as well. It's sort of yeah, not Lola as a tragic figure who sort of just found herself
In the
in
middle of two killers.
the only people that she sort of has in her life happen to also be psychopaths, which I felt really bad about. Um, and then also to have this sort of you know almost innocent kind of naivete about Sam, um
Yeah.
at the bottom of the page too.
Yeah, because she's still like, she knows that she's been doing shit. She knows Nigel's been doing stuff. She questions why she's wearing goggles. She's like, oh, just go,
Yeah.
let's take a ride in my truck, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And the worst part is just that she's not, yeah, she's gonna put her in the truck.
Yeah. Oh man.
um, and so yeah, now we're back at Sam's.
She's made some cookies.
Yeah, she's made cookies. It's very wholesome. Music is playing. A lot of things were done to sort of mask any sort of, suspicion as Nigel's climbing in through the window to do what he has sort of been assuming he was going to do, his little
Hmm.
plan for when she came home.
Oh.
And then as he comes around into the study, the little reading room, he's met with a horrible surprise and
Oh
finds his
man.
mom horribly murdered, stabbed multiple times. And it was one of those things where like the getting into this, it felt like um this couldn't be like the climax to this couldn't really be like an action packed thing, so it just didn't feel right.
Hmm.
um and again, like with Sam, she's so kind of no drama when it comes to this stuff that it felt like she needed to essentially, neutralize this whole problem. And, one of the most sort of rational ways that she could think of. So a big part of it was just sort of, taking away the one thing Nigel uh, had honestly like any sort of anchor to, with humanity. Like for whatever reason, like he's very much attached to his mother.
Right.
Um, I don't know if it's necessarily love because I don't know if I mean, he's got such a sort of like Sam. Like I don't know if he can really process emotion
Right.
um the way that most of us do.
But he
And
does have that look in his eye, like he is pretty
yeah, it's
affected by
very
it.
much he very much needs to have her in his life.
Yeah.
And it felt like him returning to Woodbrook, that was sort of school, and her health was sort of the excuse that he kept hanging on to, and he kind of keeps she pushes him a couple times throughout the books, just trying to see if it, like each couple of the issues, like it'll come up that, she kind of feels bad that he's doing this. She honestly doesn't really need him around.
Hmm.
And he kind of feels like he needs to be, because he really does need to be with her. And so then to take that away in such a violent way was sort of the big, the thing that set him off guard. And then she just neutralizes him with with some curare injected into him. And
Just
it just
paralyzes him.
totally, yeah, totally just takes out his uh, motor center of his brain. Um, and then she's just kind of, can do what she needs to do now.
I know. I love it how like nonchalant, she's like, okay, taking off all her shit, you
Yeah.
know?
And I felt so, and it just felt like so sort of sad and humiliating to have his bowels release.
Yeah.
And
And then you get his point of view of looking up at her.
yeah, and also also to have sort of explaining that like he can't move, but he can still feel everything, and you're sort of setting it up like she might be preparing to torture him. But
That's kind of
ultimate,
what I was
yeah,
starting to think,
yeah. But
was that she was
ultimately,
gonna have
it's
her
like
way with him.
it's mostly. I mean, she does, but it's all psychological, and he'll still be able to feel everything psychologically. And she flips off the music and then goes about sort of just really nonchalantly, you know, grabbing the knife. I like how she's just slicing like defensive wounds on herself as she's sort of explaining how this is gonna go. And then essentially just laying out, what the story is gonna be,
Hmm.
and how, she's setting him up, uh, sort of doing what, framing him for the murder of his mom and attempted murder of her. Um, and it very much felt like the way through, it just felt like especially cruel to just sort of underscore like how out of everything, like he still had this love from his mom. and
Yeah.
and then he was just like, how could you kill her? How could you? And it's her sort of also just she didn't. Um, it's not completely out of left field though, because he sort of does that to her at the end of 4 when he's saying like, "How could you do that to poor Charlie?"
Hmm.
And so it's very much her making it even worse, but it's like hitting home, right?
Oh yeah, she's getting
Um,
full revenge on this
yeah,
guy.
but it's like, yeah, it's the worst because I mean, she didn't care about Charlie,
No, she didn't care
and
about everybody,
she
and
didn't
she
care
says
about
in here.
Lola.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, look, she calls him out for being an idiot. Only idiots use guns when they don't know when they don't know what else they're doing. And then like to even say here, yeah, I liked her well enough, but that was about it. I don't
yeah,
pretend to know what love is. So it's like where she really did act it out very well. Like she did give a shit about Lola like earlier in the series, right?
sure.
Even I was like, maybe this is the one person she cares about, you know? Even I thought it. But here it's
Oh,
like, no, she didn't even hesitate. She stabbed the shit out of her,
yeah.
propped her up, pulls a knife out of her, and then starts cutting herself with it, you know, and just like, oh man.
And then we get the one tear coming out of his eye.
Yeah. How could you kill her, Nigel? Like, oh man, the mental torture that she inflicts on him as she's about to end his life.
Yeah, and then we have the click and the bang, and
Hmm.
it's so like not even. She's just kind of like, oh well,
Yeah.
like it's very like nothing. And then we cut to, the light of day the next day, and the cops are checking out the scene. Um, and it's just a horrible thing. And it's very much we have the news reporter coming in again, essentially just laying out exactly what Sam had set up, told
Yep.
Nigel she was gonna do. Um, and then we kind of have, hit the reset button with Woodbrook.
Yeah.
And it seems like,
Everybody's happy again.
yeah, exactly. They have the story they needed to hear. And everybody's able to sort of process it and start to resume life again. Um, and everything's, yeah, cats are getting rescued from trees, like kids are going back to school.
Yeah.
And even we see Melody and like with somebody new, and who knows what's possible now.
Hmm.
And I love that we have this moment of Melody and Sam still like having had this moment together in issue 3,
Yeah.
in the history that they're kind of carrying together. And then Pauline
Oh gosh.
and with her baked Molzidi.
Ziti casserole.
And it's just really sweet moment that just felt like it's kind of it is the grateful part of it of Pauline and her sweetness, but then also just it just feels like it just felt like such a such like she and the rest of the town are just back under the spell. You know what I mean? I needed to have like this moment of her, going through the what seemed like her, you know, just embracing Sam again, but then to have this, he pulls up the ring on the chain,
Hmm.
and it was just like it's the thing that's gonna be that this is won over Pauline forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the
Um,
thing to solidify that
yeah,
she isn't
exactly.
like cold and heartless to kind of like keep that facade going up.
Yeah. And then also just to have this like really kind of emotional darkness that she goes to as well, of just being so grateful that she killed
Nigel, yeah.
Nigel. And but it's also like but we know how she killed Nigel. And so it's very much, it's so twisted to me. It just seemed like such a twisted sort of complicated thing of her to be, grateful for this sort of vengeance, right? And to give into that. Uh, but then also to just, it's so also just very complicated and misguided in many ways. Um, and then yeah, and then I had to have the sheriff pop up again, uh,
Yeah.
just to kind of make it, you know, just feel like maybe there's something else that's gonna come up.
Hmm.
But at the same time, like I also have a very cynical view of a lot of municipalities, and so like
As do a lot of us, I think.
wait,
Yeah.
so the sheriff is basically coming in groveling for her endorsement for the election coming up. And
Yeah.
of course, she'll give it to him, I'm sure. But it's also not without her being a little sly about it.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and then she's just closing up shop, and then here she is waiting in
What
the dark,
what a
watching
great view.
watching
Yeah.
Woodbreck walk by.
Yeah.
She's thinking about, maybe laying low for a little bit, maybe, hibernating.
Yeah. I love it, dude. It's a great it like it's such a great ending because it leaves there's so much room to go, you know?
Sure.
It does
Yeah.
feel open-ended, but it also feels very much like wrapped up nicely too. So if there was never another Beneath the Trees where nobody sees, this would be a satisfying ending.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, I want more,
Yeah.
you
So
know?
do I.
Yeah. But what a great series, dude.
Oh, thank you so much, man.
I mean, I said it from the beginning, man. Like the minute I saw that cover to number one, I've said it every time we talked. This is, I mean, it was on my pick for best of 2023, and it's going to be on my best of 2024. It was like
Oh, thanks,
I
man.
looked forward to it every time it was coming out. It's so crazy to see all the success that it's had. The Eisner nomination. Hopefully, take that Eisner home. What's next?
Yeah, good question. I mean, IDW is very into this book, and of course I am too. I had a lot of fun doing it, and the audience is like really grown, especially to this point. So, like, I mean, definitely want to possibly do more, and nothing's been set up yet. So
Okay.
basically, it's wait and see right now. But man, ever since I did issue one, I just realized like how much more stuff I could do with it. And so it's kind of just been, it's kind of impossible not to want to do more.
Hmm.
And to what you were saying too, I mean, yeah, that's how I wanted to end it. I wanted to, that's how I would do everything, by the way.
Yeah.
I would very much like if I ever did any new thing I'm gonna do, like it's probably gonna be, you know, 4 to 6 issues, and it'll wrap up, but it will still have room for more. Like,
Hmm.
it's kind of the thing to do. I'm sure there would be stories where it felt, very much like you had to have a certain ending. I wouldn't do it to in the disservice of that, but
Right.
like it always struck me as frustrating whenever I would finish something that obviously had more, wanted to do more, and then just like couldn't, just didn't, didn't the they decided not to continue it,
Hmm.
and then you're kind of left very unsatisfied.
Yeah. I
And
hate when that
so,
happens.
oh man, I hate when that happens,
So
and I
annoying.
feel it's a very frustrating feeling because I feel bad for the creators, and then I also just am frustrated that I don't get more out of this thing.
Hmm.
And so I very much wanted to have that sense of closure, almost in the same way, like it's not, how do you want to put it? Like when I did each issue, I wanted it to, it's hard because you have to have an ongoing story. And I talked about this before, but each issue kind of has its own vibe.
Hmm.
And so I wanted it to have that, for each uh issue, but then also for the whole, like, 6 issues, it really needed to have like that sort of, its own thing, like, and it was done.
Right.
um this chapter's closed, but the story's not finished type of feeling.
Yeah. I mean,
um
there's stuff before that you could tell about Samantha.
oh,
There's stuff
hell yes,
after, you
there's
know?
so much. There's like side stuff, like there's all sorts of
Yeah.
stuff. And so it's just kind of yeah, there's so much I could do with it. I really am hoping to get a chance to do more.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody that's read this book is hoping that there's more to come. I'm excited for the prospect of what else you're going to do in this world. I'm excited for everything else that you may have coming up as well. So, if you haven't been able to get this series because the first issue sold out, multiple printings, the second issue sold out a couple printings too, and I think three. The trade is coming. I believe
September 17th.
September. Okay, September 17th. So if you didn't pick up the singles, which I highly recommend, don't wait till September but if you can't find them, make sure you pick up that trade because it's such a great book. I can't wait to like read it all in one sitting now that it's
Yeah.
complete. But yeah, thank you again, Patrick. It's been a blast going through these issues
Oh,
with
it's my
you.
pleasure. Yeah, this has been a total hoot. I'm so excited to be able
Yeah,
to actually do the page through and talk about what was going on through my head.
hell yeah. And with whatever comes next with you, I want to I'm asking now. Let's do it again.
Oh
So
yeah, I would love it.
all right, cool, man. Well, thank you again, and everybody go pick up the books. Like I said, the singles are all done, 6 issues are out, and the trade's coming out September 17th. And thank you again, Patrick.
Oh, thanks, man.